Alright folks, so this is our planer, also known as a surfacer. What this machine does is it will take the surface of a board and go over it and make it thinner. Okay? When we cut trees down at a sawmill, alright, we get boards like this, right off the tree, right? You can still see the bark, and you can see how very rough the surface is. So the job of this machine is to pull the boards through and get rid of this rough surface and smooth it out, and take it to the correct thickness you want. Okay? Some of the parts of this machine are, this big table is called a bed. Alright, this moves up and down by moving this hand wheel on the side. Okay, and it's hard to see where you guys are at, but it's labeled down and up with an arrow, so you can tell which way you're going. Okay? There's this handle right here. So let's say if the bed was all the way down and you have to move it all the way up, instead of turning this hand wheel several times, you could simply lift this power feed up while the machine's running, and it'll automatically spin this wheel to move the bed where you want it. Okay? Across the front of the machine, there's a scale. Alright, this machine was built in Brazil. So there's a regular English inch system at the bottom in red, and there's a metric system at the top in black. So which system do you think we're going to use?
The English.
Okay, the English, the red system, the inches. Okay? We have our start-stop switches over here, okay, to start the machine. And right up top here, we have what's called a blast gate. All right, this needs to be pulled open, all right, before using the machine. That opens the air to the dust collector so we can pull all the sawdust away as we're using the planer. What do you guys think might happen if we forgot to open the blast gate and we start running this? It won't explode.
Sawdust could build up inside the machine.
Okay, this thing's going to basically start throwing,
Spitting out dust.
spitting out sawdust towards you. Right, so you're going to know pretty quick if you forget to open your blast gate. Okay? The way this works inside is under this cover is a big circular cutter head, about 24 inches long, with 4 24-inch long knives spinning around. Okay? In the front and in the back, there's 2 rollers. They're feed rollers. So what they do is they grab the board and pull it through the machine. So the machine automatically moves the board for you. You don't have to push it in. All right? Now, if we were to plane one of these boards, okay, let's say I've got this board and I'm going to measure the thickness. Right now it's about 15/16 of an inch thick. And let's say I want this to be a 1/2 inch thick. What would I set the bed for? 15/16, or do I set it for a 1/2 inch? Yes, sir. Okay, you would set it actually for what the board is. Because if we set it for a 1/2 inch, it's going to try and take all this material off in one pass, and it can't do that. So you always set it for whatever the measurement is first. Okay, so what I'm going to do is look at my ruler, and I'm going to turn this until we're at 15/16, which is right there. If I run this through right now, is it going to do anything? No, because it's at 15/16. So what I'm going to do is grab the hand wheel, like pretend this is a clock at 12 o'clock, and I'm going to move it a 1/2 turn up to 6 o'clock. So now it's going to take off a little bit of material. Does that make sense? All right, now, this machine has the potential to kick back, meaning, and I've never seen this happen, but it is possible that while the board is going through the machine, the board could shoot backwards towards the person using the machine. So would it be a good idea to stand directly behind the board? No. Okay, you always stand to the side of the board. The other thing is, you guys see how the bed here, there's a gap between the board and the table and the bed, right? What happens is when the feed rollers grab this board, it kind of pushes down on that board and starts pulling it in. So what do you think might happen if your finger was under that board? Okay, you're going to get pinched. It's called a pinch point. All right? Also, not only is it pinching your finger, but what's the machine trying to do? Yeah, it's trying to pull the board in. So it doesn't know if your finger's pinched there or not. It's going to try and pull your finger in with it. So you never want to have your fingers underneath where the pinch point is. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, there is some dimensions that we need to be aware of when we're going to use this. Across the top here, I have a 14-inch line drawn on the machine. That means that you have to have at least 14 inches in length for this board to go through, okay? There's no limit to how long it could be. You could go as far back as the wall, and we could open the back doors if we had to run a long board through. But what would happen, you think, if we had a board that's shorter than 14 inches? What might happen? Okay, it'll get stuck in the machine. If that does happen, what do you think you should do?
Turn it off.
Okay. Usually your first instinct would be to just turn it off. On a planer, the difference is if you just turn it off, the feed rollers are going to keep trying to push that board into the machine as it's slowing down. So the first thing you do is lower the bed and then turn the machine off. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to reset my measurement, give it a half a turn up, and we're going to run a board through. JP, if you would please turn on the dust collector. Okay, we're going to start it up. Okay, JP, turn it off. So you guys can see the board does not look much different, but if I take my ruler to the edge of the board, we were at 15/16, now we're at 7/8 of an inch. Okay? So now we've lost a little bit of material. If I wanted to get this to a ½ inch, I would keep turning, a half a turn. All right, you could go a little less, but never more than a half a turn. And then keep going and measuring until you get to a ½ inch. Okay? Now, I have a ruler on me, I have a tape measure on me. Let's say you don't feel like walking all the way to the tool cage to get a ruler, because it is a far walk, right? On the front of the machine here, there's this little shelf that you can set your piece on, and there's a red ruler right here. So you can use that ruler as well if you don't have a tape measure or a ruler. Okay, it'll work just the same. Questions so far? Okay, what I'd like to do is I'm going to have you guys all line up in a single file line. You'll come up, and every other person, because we're going to run 2 boards, will have to turn the hand wheel up a half a turn. Remind you if you have to or not. We'll run the board through, okay, and then you'll get back in line until everyone's gone through and used the machine. Run here until you don't have to turn it. Okay, first of all, you guys all did a great job on your first run here. A couple more things. You can see these 2 boards have lost a little bit of weight and they're a little smaller now, right? Is there a minimum, you think, of how thin we could go with these? Yes? Yes. No? Yes? Okay, yeah, there is. When we get to about 1/4 of an inch, all right, we can still continue to plane it, but we have to change the way we do things. What we do is we get another piece of wood the same size or a little bit bigger called a jig or a backer board. All right, and what we do is place that underneath to add support, because as it gets thin, it gets weak. So if you put a thicker board underneath to help support it, then reset the thickness of the planer to the total thickness, run both boards through, now you can take that top board down to almost paper thin. Okay, but that's called a jig or backer board. You guys probably won't need to do that, but it's good information to know. All right, do you think it's ever a good idea while you're using this machine to kind of talk to somebody or look away? No, you always want to concentrate on what you're doing, right? All right, so let me just review a little bit. Does anybody remember what the minimum length is?
14.
Okay, 14 inches, very good. What is this big table called?
Bed.
Bed, yes. Which scale do we use?
English.
The English one, the red one, yes. Okay. What is this called over here that we move the bed with? What is it? Well, yeah, we pretend it's a clock, but it's a hand wheel, okay? So, if we want to cut something thinner, which direction do we go? Up or down? Up, very good, okay? Is there ever a time you would want to look directly into the machine?
No.
No, why?
Shoot out.
Okay, sawdust even, something could shoot back at you, get in your eye, whatever. Okay? Is it a good idea, you think, to run your hand across here to wipe dust away? No. Okay? Let me make sure we covered everything else. Where should we stand? Always to the side, not directly behind the board, right? Okay. And what's the most you should ever turn the hand wheel? Half a turn. Very good. Half a turn. Okay, now, one thing we didn't cover yet. This all worked out well today, but occasionally a board will get stuck in the machine. All right? Did we talk about that yet?
Yes.
Okay, we did. All right, so just as a review then, what should we do when the board does get stuck?
Turn the head.
Okay, lower the bed first, and then what?
Turn it off.
Turn it off. Okay, great. Questions? All right, guys, we can go back to the benches and we'll get our safety tests out. Great job.